Hey people, I was looking into Thoth when I found this, and it reminded me of an old man I knew when I was a kid, old Dichero. He was a funny man. He was so funny. It's what got him killed in his bed on an April Fool's morning. It was surely a bad joke. He was a coon-ass Dominic Dichero. He lived in New Orleans. He had this super hot daughter in a Trans Am. And he had a seafood house here in Gulfport. He would show up every morning and go out on the pier and moo for his cows to come in. He would milk them. And so he didn't have a chance. It was already instilled in him in his name. Dominic, the dominion ick, like the dominion of. And Dichero is a part of this word, the Dicharachero. A Dicharachero is witty, chatty, talkative, a witty person. And it comes from, the chero, to spread the chair, and die is to spread or double, dissect, the double, and chera meaning, to charity, to his share, is what charity come from. You got to give your share to charity. And he had double the share of Chero, twice as funny. And so with just the Chero, it's thy Chero, thy comedian, the cheer, the witty. So this cylinder seal is going to give a good look into a better meaning for Thoth or Thoth. People seen his name many ways, and it's where the deity comes from, Dehuty. Deity and Thoth are the same word. And it's going to tell a bunch about it in the Hebrew writing where they still spelled it the same. You see all the different pronunciations and spellings of it here. And it actually comes from an ancient Adam word here. And you still hear it on TV today, you just don't recognize it. But this is real close here. The duty. He was the deity. He had a feminine counterpart with Seshat. She's the one that usually got the pot leaf on top of her head. His wife was Mat, was the feather of truth. Just a feather of truth, the little smallest, lightest weight of truth. He was the god of the moon, wisdom, writing, hieroglyphs, science, magic, art, and judgment. And they forgot the biggest one, He was the god of comedy. Many spellings of the name. The Egyptian pronunciation of deity is not fully known. It's because it's many. Reconstruction based on ancient Greek, borrowing thought. It's where our word thought come from. Toot, thought, toot, doot, tutos, and Thor. And so they say the Egyptians didn't have the D palate. And so that would be us Americans, where everybody else says D, we say thee. And that's why the change. Some people pronounce it as a T and some pronounce it as a D. You can see if you look at it sideways, it is a D. And many further names and spellings. Jehuty, Tahuti, Zahuti, Teka. That would be the Greek, for the children or the technos, the technicians. Tidu, known as A, just A, and Sheps, and Lord of Coming New, and Aston, the stars, and Kenti Mebi Hab, and On. And this is most likely dealing with magics and some other knowledges. And the On, I would believe that is flight. In the Hebrew, they'll say the On, O-N-N, is clouds or above. And the Sumerian, the On was the gods, the stars, the sky, above. And also known by specific aspects of himself. For instance, the moon god of Dehuty. Dehuty. And that means a full moon rising at sunset, And it's going to be a Dehuty night. And so most all these ancient writings are probably correct. It's just our modern translations are way off. But you see in, French, they thought him as Thoth, being the deuce, the twice great, and Hermes was the thrice great. And he was there keeping up with the numbers when they were weighing your heart against a feather of truth, against the little smallest amount of truth. He invented the 365-day calendar by bargain, for 72nd of the light to add the 5 days. And this is what created all earth life, because Nut had been cursed to not be fertile for 360 days. And so it was these 5 days that Thoth had created that began creation. And so you learn a lot by reading this article here in Wikipedia, but you learn everything except just basic truth. And this is his page. It begins Ecclesiastes 1, preceding generations forgotten, words of the teacher. And then it begins describing the solar system, how the solar system works, and the sun up and down, and what's toward the south and turning around the north, and continually whirling the wind in its circuit, the cycle comes again, and all the rivers run to the sea, and yet the sea is not full. It's talking about evaporation, and that's what Thoth's head represents, is the top of a distillery. It's how the waters, they distill up and rain back down. Just the pure waters distill up. The salt stays in the sea. Place from which the rivers come, and there they return, up in the thought. And then they give it this description, that all these things are wearisome, and no, man can't understand this. He can't express it, so don't even try. But if you read it, it plainly explains. And then at 12, it gets into this, with wisdom comes sorrow, dolorous. And it talks about the wisdom concerning all that is done. Thought is under. That's the T, and underneath the O, and then HT, the thought, taught. And so it'll bounce back and forth and read different ways here. But you see other words, the same word. They'll say is knowledge, is the dot. And it's where your word, the duat, come from. And that was Thoth's realm, was the duat. To know is of dot, and know, and dot, thought, and thoughty, I perceived. And he who increases thought, knowledge. Use if, Y-O-U-S, use if, make of in. He who increases, that's where your word Joseph come from right there, because he has increased Joseph. And dot, duat, the dot says D-O and then O-T, duat, the knowledge. And thought, taught, under, the underworld of duat. Thoth's roles in Egyptian mythology were many. He served as scribe of the gods, credited with the invention of writing hieroglyphics in the underworld. In Duat, he appeared as ape Ani, that is the God of I am in the Hebrew. God said, this is the sign of the covenant which I make. In Genesis 15, they say it means I am. 17:1, I am God Almighty, Ani, meaning alone, myself. And so it surely means any one of yous it could be. The thought and the knowledge has appeared as any. So, in an earlier time, before they lost the palatalization of the D, it wasn't Thoth, but it was dude. It was D-O-D, D-O-U-D, dude. And so if you happen to spell it with the D, somebody might have mistaken it for King David, which is just a D-U-D with just the letters there. And with the vowel points and reading directions, these words are all switching up anyway. And surely where your word tude come from, as in altitude or attitude being, the range. But I believe the ancient Adam word was do, is like the word jealous in the Greek. The god Jealous was the god of laughter. And so dote is when your low lady pokes you in the ribs because something you said. Dote is that noise you make. Dote is the noise you make to hold back laughing when you hear something real funny, but you want to hear the rest of the joke, you know. You just throw out a little dote. And it's also where your word the antidote come from. So when I first look at this, you know, I see it, Dio, you know, the deity, the Dio. And so it's not just as in D, but it's Dio, God of, you know, the highest. And then this looks like the wall, you know, with Chet, CH, to divide. And then this looks like the back of a head. It's not a common hieroglyph. It could be a tonic. But it looks like the back of the head, and they're showing the ears on the side. And then this is they say is the Egyptian mouth, but it looks more like the eye. And so people, you know, reading on the Phoenician, you know, they would see it, you know, the Chet, CH, and the head. You know, it doesn't have a face drawn on it. A little different. You know, you still see it's a head, you know, the R and the O. They might be reading that I as a O as in Chero. But in the Egyptian, like I say, this isn't common, but this, they give this a double R. It's still turning into the CH and then R, which becomes a root, the Chero. So it's Chero either way. And you get a better definition, you know, reading it from the bottom up. The mouth doesn't represent the mouth. It represents to open, or it's the eye is to see. You know, the tongue represents what you would think was the word or command, but this is, you know, to open or to see, and then the R, you know, to see and to see the back of the head. And so this isn't your regular Chet, you know, it's got an extra line there. It's not just divided. You know, letter H is the Chet divide, but this is totally compartmentalized. You know, that's a word that you'll hear comedians use a lot, you know, and that's how they make their jokes. They compartmentalize everything. It's a trick that the politicians use. You know, they try to compartmentalize everything. But yeah, you know, to see in, to put in the head and compartmentalize it and analyze it, you know. And so it might be read as the ORCH, you know, the orch, as in torch, as in the fire, the light. And that not just the Chero, but the Chero, you know, the highest chair. And so that just reads right along, you know, the Chero, and then the crown on him. You know, this is, they almost get this right. They call this the king holding two lion griffins. And they'll say this is reading as Thoth, and then protection, the wall, and then over me. But that's the part they got right, is the lion griffin. And so you just read this right on through, you know, the Chero, the top comedian, the Cherum. The MLK, you know, just reads right on with the Romet, the Cheromilk. A Romelk means like a Roman, you know, a Romlik, MLK, a Romlik. And it's a negative. It means acting like one of them Romans, you know, and that's why they say kings, you know, an epitome of. And the Cheromilk, you know, a Rommel being a citizen of Rome, you know, the Omlik or the Romlik, to worse and to go wrong. And it's not a Roman word because that's talking about the Romans. You have to be away from Rome to use this word. But the Bomlik, the Omlik, you know, the Bomlik meaning in Omlik, you know, to become unstitched, you know, so the Omlik is tattered, not good, you know, and meaning, you know, acting Rome-like. And then the two lion griffins, you know, is the die, you know, di, separate, you know, and the die, through the lion and grip on, the lion gripping on, coming from the wings here, you know, he's got a grip on the lie and on the lion grip on. So it's ancient seal of a comedian, and like an ancestor of Mr. DeChero, who is funnier than hell. Glad I knew him when I was a kid. But it's the Diacheromalik, you know, the funnium like Romalik. The lion grip on, got a grip on the lion gripping And so I'm sure that the feet have one more word in there that I'm not catching. But this was surely a seal made for a comedy writer. And somebody didn't know the Egyptian 3R rule. It might have been reading this as Dude Charmlick. The old Dude Charmlick, lion gripping on. So this King David here, it's more of just a dude. And it says debris. Debris felt. F-E-L-T. Debris felt. They're throwing shit at you. Debris felt Ben dude backwards. Ben dude would milk. Ben dude would milk by Russelum. By rustle means to stake by the rustling cows, And debris felt Ben dude would milk by Russelum. The dude's just thieving the milk is feeling debris. And thank you, my old friend Skip, that was much loved everywhere, for explaining that story to me. He told me the story about him and his friend back in grade school, 6th grade, 5th grade, back in the mid-60s. And they decided they wanted to know what a tit felt like, and they just started squeezing all the girls' tits till they found out the girls really couldn't do nothing about it. Until one day when all the girls got together and the debris felt Ben Dude would milk by Russelum. So he been squeezing titties and the girls got together and they're throwing rocks back at him. And then evil him. This is the same word for, Cain and Abel, E-B-L, E-V-L. And evil him a more high, a more felt. Evil him the cleavel. To heckle, is to comb out. So the evil just didn't fall on him, but he combed it out. He worked hard to create it, to comb it out of what was there. And evil him a more felt. Evil him the cleavel, the cleave will. And so it seems that evil is a word that they created to hide, is to have, life in, to have the level him a high felt, to have a level him the heckle evil. If you're in a position, you're going to get heckled. And the men wear tit runnel had 'em. The minority, this is the men, backwards where the men wear. Where is the city, And the men wear tit. The tit runnel had 'em. These are the men that are distilling, where the tit runnel. Runnel, a narrow channel of liquid, a brook, a small stream, an amount of liquid that is flowing, the runnel. In call, the Wilma, from Lucia, from Lucium of that isms. Men wear tit runnel had 'em. In call Wilma. And so Wilma is the resolute protector, coming from will or desire, and helm, the helmet. So the helmet is not necessarily protection. The helmet is what they say is dreams, to desire the dreams. Men wear tit runnel had 'em. In call Wilma from Lucium. The desire from the dreams, from Lucia, from the light, from of that isms. That's the one you are under that. Under a cata. The category is, they'll say, is under sometimes in the Greek. That's the under, is that category, that type. And so Thoth means many things, depending on how you're going to read it with these points. And to relic, relic, to relinquish, passes. And to relic, whether, the D is the TH, WTH you are, and will relic, whether in, ba, in, where its slow of mom date, mom's date, the moon. And was riches from sub, was riches from under, from sub AE is ES, from subvessums. You know, subvessums are all those that are sub, that are under you. From subvessums, from all those under you. And allum of, and allum of come a swap, is where he was WASM is where he was So I'll try to summarize all that to begin the next movie. And I'm trying to get down here where it explains Thoth real well. And we see it in the reading directions, how it changes the word up. And I believe it was down here in 13 where the word is going to read backwards and forwards after you hit the mark here. But that's the next movie.
Don't forget. I won't forget.
Alright, I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.